So yeah, I mean, that's you don't let that military career sit there and go, oh, you didn't do anything. Like that built resiliency,
but it also built, there's so many different attributes that I never thought of to use that I could put it on a resume if I wanted to. If someone's coming in and they're doing CPR, you have new nurses or new respiratory therapists that they either freeze or they freak out, right? I've already been through that. Put me in the gas chamber, right?
Yeah.
So we were in the helicopter one time and we got caught in a whiteout in the snow in Korea, and right in the area of these high tension power lines. I mean, nothing. I have no control over it. What can I do? I just have to stay calm, do my job. That's it. That's all I can do is my job. So once I get to the hospital and I realize that, man, all of this stuff that I've done previously now is adding up, and I'm able to put it together and see how it goes together. Yeah, you can bring me this mangled body, and I'm going to act the same way I would if it's someone who just needs a breathing treatment.
Yeah. So respiratory therapist though, man, people just like, oh, you just, it doesn't sound like that difficult of a job, but it actually takes a really mental toll on you because you worked a lot. You're pretty much the lifeline of people, right? You are it. You're the plug, essentially.
People don't think of it that way, but when you use a term or someone uses a term, yeah, we had to pull the plug on grandma yesterday or whatever. That's the respiratory therapist, and it's not just pulling a plug. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. But I'm there when you're born, so I'm there at the best time of people's lives usually, and at the worst time of people's lives when you're dying or you can't breathe or your heart stopped. So it's not just respiratory; it's cardiopulmonary, right? So your heart and your lungs,
right? Yeah. I mean, you can't breathe. You're not getting oxygen to your lungs and your heart and your brain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going to start failing. So you worked a lot with children as well, right?
I was a pediatric liaison at Grossmont. I worked with in between Rady Children's and Grossmont. Grossmont has a children's or a pediatric department there. So I did that. But what's interesting about the geography of where we live at Grossmont Hospital is if something bad happens in East County, it doesn't matter what age you are, the closest hospital is Grossmont or Sharp Grossmont. So they're not going to drive a pediatric kid to Children's Hospital because that's another 15 minutes by ambulance when the closest hospital is Grossmont. And that what ends up happening, especially in the summer, everybody has a swimming pool out here in Southern California, except for me. We're working on that someday. So instead of driving to Radius for a drowning or something like that, it comes to Grossmont, and we would have every summer. It's summertime right now, so there's going to be drownings. There are going to be dead kids because people weren't paying attention. And I tell this to everybody that I know is that no one is watching your kid. You say, hey, I'm just going to go run in and grab a beer. I'm just going to go run in and grab a piss. Can you watch little Jimmy for a second? No one is watching your kid but you around the pool. And the reason I know that is because of the amount of drownings that I've seen. And it's always, well, I thought you were watching them. You can't take that back. You can't bring them back. So one of the people ask me about PTSD or things of that nature from the respiratory job, from the military as well, but from respiratory. And I can't remember the amount of people that I've extubated or pulled the plug, right? Quote, pulled the plug. It's probably in the hundreds, maybe thousands, and a lot of them were very, very old, and it was time to go. That's my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember their faces, their names, the family members or anything, but I can remember every time I was a child. I can remember the faces of the parents in the room. I can remember the exact face of the kid. And there was a bad one, the one that the reason I talk about, a lot of people don't talk about it. The reason I talk about it is because it helps me kind of get it off my chest. There was one where there was a party going on and everyone was getting ready to leave the party, and it was in the afternoon, and everybody's in the front yard, kissing and hugging everybody goodbye. And all of a sudden they go, "Hey, where's little Jimmy?" And they're looking around, they don't see him. About 15 minutes goes by and somebody finds him. They had an above ground pool in the backyard and he was face down in the above ground pool. So at that point, 15 minutes has gone by. We don't know how long he was down for. We know at least 15 minutes, right? So he could have been in the pool for who knows how long, because no one is watching your kid except for you. So then they call 911. Nobody starts CPR. And this is a big pet peeve of mine. If you don't know how to start CPR, just start beating on somebody's chest. It's better than nothing, right? If the fire department takes 10 minutes to get there, it was within the city limits. So he's been down for 25 minutes and nobody's done CPR. He's brain dead. There's no oxygen going to the brain. There's no blood flowing. So get him. So they start CPR, bring him to the hospital. We're now over half an hour. Nothing. It's not. The chances of survival at this point, even in children, is very, very, very slim. So mom and dad show up. We're still doing CPR. We're still pushing drugs. Still trying to get the pulses back, and you can get pulses from epi, giving epi, but it's not real, right? You can make a heartbeat with drugs, but it's the drug doing the work. The heart's not doing it itself. So, and you can't just keep giving somebody epi forever. So it's kind of a false sense of security if a parent is looking at the monitor and they're like, "Oh, the heart's beating." Well, yeah, epinephrine's making the heartbeat. It's not really doing it on its own. And then you'll see the drug wear off, the heart will stop again, and then you keep doing this ACLS cycle eventually until the doctor, the physician calls it, or sometimes the physician will look around and say, does anybody have any other ideas? Anything? Anybody got anything? And we're like, yeah, there's nothing we can do at this point. So I'm bagging at the head of the bed. The child was intubated, blood's coming out. It's just a horrible scene, right? I believe he was 2 years old, and I have a 2-year-old right now. And so then it turns to these parents have an opportunity to make a huge difference in the lives of numerous other kids. But it's a very sensitive subject because they just lost their child. And now somebody has to ask them, "Hey, do you want to donate your child's organs to other kids that need them?" And those two parents right there, it gives me the chills to think about it. They said yes. So they took the kid to the OR and took the organs, the eyeballs. We got a letter a few months later from the company that does that, and it explained where all of those different organs went and how many lives that kid saved. And I would never have the resiliency to go through something like that if I hadn't gone through all of this crap from before and overcome it. I mean, I can't, if my 2-year-old was in that situation, I don't know what I would do. I couldn't tell you.
That is a very difficult decision for any parent to ever make. Not only that, but for the medical staff as well, going in there, looking at this 2-year-old just dead and knowing that this kid is not going to come back alive and having to deliver that news. You're talking about summertime drownings. My daughter was 2.5 years old, and we were at a pool, at a buddy's pool, his condo, and she had a floaty on. The floaty goes around the chest and the arms.
Yep.
Everybody else knew how to swim, and it was me. It was really my wife's friend's husband, and we were just hung out. We liked each other. He was a ATF agent.
Oh, we don't like those guys.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that here in a minute.
I'm just kidding, ATF.
Yeah. He said that, not me. I was not paying attention. We weren't drinking. We were just having fun. And somehow my daughter got out of her thing. Very bizarre. The only way to do it is somebody unbuckling it. Mm. And she jumped into the hot tub. Didn't even know she jumped into the hot tub. And my oldest son said, "Dad, Kaylee is on the bottom of the hot tub." And I was like, holy shit. So I run around and I'm across the pool. And by the time I get there, he has her out of the hot tub. And I grab her and her belly is hard as a rock. And her face is just turned purple. I don't know child CPR. I've never done it. I've never seen it done. And I was just freaking the fuck out. But resiliency, things that I've learned in the military, calm, do something. And so as I grab her, I yell to him saying, "Call 911. Call 911. And this fucking ATF agent froze fucking solid. Stiff as a fucking board. Couldn't even move. Never responded back to me. And I'm grabbing her. And now the only thing I'm like, okay, her belly's full. So I just start smacking her on the back.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I started doing that. I could not tell you. I've never been trained. And as I'm doing this, I'm yelling in this condo complex for somebody to call 911 because this guy is frozen. This ATF agent who carries a gun for work is frozen solid. And as I'm doing it, I'm just watching her just limped, gone. And I'm just trying my hardest to do whatever I could do as a father. And finally, she spits up a little water and starts gurgle crying. And then it was just like profuse, just water coming out, just so much. I'm like, hell yes, that is freaking great. Well, somebody calls 911, and now I can hear fire trucks come in. I can hear sirens in the distance, and then I get her. She starts crying, so I kind of flip her on her side a little bit and keep kind of patting her on the back.
The flipping on the side came from your military training.
It probably did. It was CPR, assessing a wounded person. So I flipped them on her side. Now I'm not holding her like this. I'm flipped her on her side and kept doing it. And she spit a lot of water out. And now she started full-fledged crying. And I was like, oh my God. But I also know there's secondary drowning.
Yeah. Crying's good though. Crying's good.
Crying is good. Yeah. That means she's getting oxygen. That means she's breathing. That means she's alive. Mm-hmm. So fire department gets there, man, and PD get there. And, I hand her over to them, and I immediately just started fucking bawling, just started bawling. I could not control it because I'm over here like, I don't even know if my daughter's going to live, at this moment still. They get her, they package her up and get her to the hospital. I go with them, and she lives. She survives. But this whole time I'm a mess internally, because I'm like, wow, I don't even know child CPR. I didn't never think this could happen to me. How did this happen? But she survives, and no health issues from it.
That's good.
But it was that, talk about that instinct, right? Like, don't freak out, keep calm, or as calm as you can. The guy who's a ATF agent, man, freezes up, solid.
I think
he unfroze finally when his wife was coming around running, going, yelled his name several times. I'm not going to say his name, but yelled his name several times. Finally it was like, oh crap, what am I like? But the guy was never in the military. I'm not saying everybody in the military is going to react that way, but his instinct was just freeze up. He froze solid.
I think the military has done a great job in the last 15 years probably of creating. We actually had resiliency classes, and I remember thinking, God, this is so stupid. What are we doing? And I couldn't tell you what they were, but it's PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint.
Yeah,
right?
Oh yeah.
And I honestly have no idea what they were. I'm sure they were about resiliency, but I don't remember what was on the slides or anything. But they do a good job, a very good job of showing you that you can overcome, whether it's physical or mental or sleep deprivation or whatever it is. You can overcome this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a big deal. And law enforcement agencies, so CHP actually has a very militarized paramilitary police academy where you go live there, and they're pretty squared away. Where some agencies, like they go to Quantico or wherever they go, they're not as militarized as that, and they don't put them through as many scenarios that you and I went through. And
yeah.
I'll give you a funny example. I'm allergic to bees, so I'm supposed to carry an EpiPen, right? Yeah, I have no idea where my EpiPen is. Somewhere in this house. My wife and I were outside last weekend. We were doing some work around the house, and I'm just constantly not on alert. It's calmed down. I'm not on alert all the time, but there's a little bit of alert in me, right? More than most people, I would say. So I hear, I'm like, what is that noise? That's a swarm of bees. And I just said, run now, to my wife. And then I just stood there. I didn't freeze. I'm just like, well, I'm not going to outrun these bees. I'm just going to stay here, be calm. Maybe they'll chase her. And then I won't have to go find my EpiPen. But so I stood there, and then she comes back like 10 minutes later. I was still working in the yard. She said, what'd you do? I said, I just stayed here, and I stood here and didn't move, and they just flew around me. What do you want me to do?
I mean, you didn't tell her like, well, I made you run so they would chase you, not me.
No, we'll leave that part out.
Yeah. Oh no, that's going in, man. That's solidified now. It's
but
man.
It's the wherewithal to see something, say something, get somebody out of a situation. I was more worried about her, right? And then, hey, get it, because I heard him. You could hear swarm bees from far away. Hey, get out of here! And I know I'm not outrunning a swarm of bees, so it's not like I'm going to push her down in front of me.
I was. You're that guy at the Halloween time, right? You get scared, you push her in front of the threat, and you run. Yeah, man. So, in the time that I was going through that too, was I have a buddy who I worked with in Oklahoma City, and I was there when his son died from a drowning, and his son was at his parents' house, or his wife's parents' house. And they also worked at the hospital. They were like a director at some department in the hospital. And I was there when his 2-year-old, his son was 2, passed away because of drowning. And that's all that went through my head was like, holy shit, I am reliving this moment. Like, I never thought that would happen to me. And it almost did. It almost did. And thank God. I just thank you, military, for instilling whatever you instilled in me, the instinct to actually do something. You know, that fight or flight. I'm a fighter. I'm not a flighter.
And that goes back to my point of you did something. You didn't know what to do, but you did something. Something is better than nothing, just standing there.
Yeah, wait for fire department.
If you would have waited, things could have turned out very differently.
I 100% agree. 100% agree. And that was that was the hardest phone call that I made to my wife. Was you need to come to the hospital. Kaylee almost drowned. You know, and she's at work. You know, the hardest phone call, man. I just still fucking gives me the fucking chills, man. You know, but that point on, man, I fucking made sure my kids know how to swim. All of them. I'm like, listen, you're swimming. You're learning how to swim. And the show wouldn't be made possible without our sponsors, Red, White, and Badass Brew, and Go Man Go Productions. Your vision is our mission because we see it too.
Baby, I can't make a move like a child, a star for love that flows to the sea. Baby, if you run away, baby, if you leave, I'm so in love with you, girl. You make me feel brand new. Come on, give it up to me. Let me take care of you. I know that your mama said I'm gonna make
you cry. So you had kind of a issue with a transient at your house.
Yeah, I had some issues with some transient, mainly one transient who kind of found out my pattern of work. So I work 12 and a half hours at night shift at the hospital, and my wife was pregnant. When we first moved into the house. She was pregnant and then had the baby. Our first child had colic for about the first 6 months. So, you know, I'm sleep deprived, dealing with a transient who's just erratic on meth, just kind of basically being an asshole to the first few houses in the neighborhood, and then kind of came down on us for some reason. And then the colic, the baby crying for 6 months was something that I was not ready for. So I'm working. My wife was working at the time, and I'm happy to call this out. She was working at Kaiser, and it was going on for about a year. So about a year and a half, this was going on. And she had got laid off. So she got pregnant again, and then got laid off a week before the baby was due from Kaiser Permanente. So that was another wrench in our system, and we could talk about resiliency again, but the transient was, when I was working, was he had gotten so bad that he was threatening. He would yell at me. I'd be in the garage working, and he'd yell down at me, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Just come down here. Let's have a little chat. And he never came down. Just want to have a nice chat with him, but he never wanted to do that. So what he would do was wait until I would leave and then yell things from the mountainside down to my wife, massively inappropriate things. And it culminated with us getting a 1,000-yard restraining order against him. He did end up, he threatened to kill her. We got a 1,000-yard restraining order against him, which is huge in San Diego. I know it's a restraining order is a piece of paper that's not going to do anything, right? But 1,000 yards is for a judge to grant that is a pretty big deal. And he stayed away for a little bit, and finally one day it was the wrong day, and I would come home I think I'd get home from work about 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd usually sit on the couch until my wife would wake up and just kind of decompress a little bit. And I had the door open with the metal screen was closed and locked. And he came up and banged on the screen and said, I'm going to effing kill you and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, today is the wrong day for that. And you have to, the transients in California are almost a protected class at this point. So I had to be very diplomatic and very careful on regarding what I did, right? I couldn't just go do a lot of the things I wanted to do to remove him from the area. Because I could have a respiratory license and I put my whole family at jeopardy by losing that kind of stuff. So, but at that point, it had gone on for so long that I went outside and we had a little chat. And the police report, the sheriff's report, deputy report, shows that I assisted him to the ground until the deputies arrived. And we will leave it at that. You can interpret that however you'd like.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they need a little bit more assistance, and a little bit more restraining until PT arrives, and their struggle is their problem.
Yeah. He got assisted.
Yeah. And I'm glad you probably told him, don't hurt yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Be careful when I assist you to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Wow. So the guy's just kind of really a stalker, man. Kind of a stalker and a threat.
He was. And the sheriff's department takes, I guess the DA and the sheriff's department take threats differently, right? There's many different components to the threat. And if you look up the legal definition, it becomes very confusing. You can make a threat. Like I can say right now, hey, I'm going to kill you. But that, unless I have the means to do it, or the intent to do it, and all this other crap, then it's not a real threat, right? So that's what they kept going off of. And I was getting very frustrated with the sheriff's department at the time. We have a very good relationship now because of the business that I'm in. And I can look back and understand why they did some of the things they did. If the sheriff's department or any agency, local agency, arrests a transient, they have to bag and tag all of their items. So you've seen these homeless encampments. If you're a cop, do you want to bag and tag and inventory all of their stuff if you take them to jail? Absolutely not.
If I was a cop, the guy would not have any possessions.
So they have their own interesting ways of removing people, but that's the legal way of doing it. And so their hands are kind of tied. It's not their fault. It's our state government that has made it this way, and local government that's made it this way.
Well, that's a point. So if this would happen in Oklahoma,
well, it would never happen in Oklahoma.
Yeah, because the dude would get his ass stomped to the ground.
Yeah.
And the police would show up and be like, and you're going to jail. Yep. So you not only did you get your ass kicked, but you're also going to jail. It's ridiculous. Somebody could get away with that multiple times, threatening somebody's life. Fine. Intent. What if he just grabbed a piece of metal and did it that one time after 400 threats or 200 threats or 100 or 10 or 5?
We had pictures of him walking around with a machete. So,
well, fucking, there's intent right there.
I know.
There's a means.
I try to be understanding of law enforcement because I work with them now. I'm not a cop, but I work with them, and I see both sides of it. I wish that it wasn't a political issue. I don't know. I doubt we want to go down this road, but homelessness is a big moneymaker for certain political parties. There's a lot of money to be made in people being homeless.
We'll talk about that here in just a bit. So if you want to hear what money can be made in homelessness, that's going to be on the exclusive content. So, man, so did that fix the problem?
We ended up moving. We were like, we can't, well, let me back up a minute. We were trying to figure out what to do. We're like, well, if we sell the house, then we have to pay the realtor. And I used the VA loan. We didn't put any money down, so we would have lost money on it. So we couldn't do that. So we had to try and come up with some kind of solution. In the meantime, my wife was this was about 2 years later. So we had the first baby, and we were trying for another one, and my wife was confronted by a different transient. So there was a camp that lived in the area. She was confronted by a different transient on a walk down to the babysitter's house, a few houses down. And it scared the crap out of her because of what was going on with the other guy. So that happened, and she wasn't really feeling good. This is a little bit TMI, but she I think it was the next day or that night, I can't remember. She started bleeding more than normal, and I obviously work in healthcare, so I kind of had an idea what was going on. This was right towards the beginning of COVID when everything was. You had to wear like you're gonna hold some rice in or something, right? Yeah. Anthrax. So I said, okay, well, she went the next day, got some labs drawn. Her HCG levels were above greater than 35,000. So I knew exactly what was going on, but I didn't really have the heart to tell her. I wanted to be there for her. I didn't want to be her medical practitioner in this case. I wanted to be her husband, right? And be there for her when she found out what was going on. I didn't want it to come from the medical guy. I wanted to be the husband. And I don't know if that was the right decision. I never asked her. Maybe I'll ask her later today. I think it was, because sometimes you need to differentiate yourself between, father, soldier, medical, whatever, firefighter, and husband, and be those different roles. And it's hard. It can be very hard to do. So anyway, they called her in, or I think things started getting worse. So we went to the ER at Kaiser, and they wouldn't let me in. They said, COVID we can only have only the patient. It was before they were even letting in one visitor. So we can only have the patient only. And I'm like, yeah, I tried to call in favors from friends at different hospitals that also worked at Kaiser, and they're like, yeah, man, they can't. The policy right now is not to let anybody in as a visitor. So I'm sitting in the car knowing that my wife is in the ED, and some nurse that she doesn't know or physician that she doesn't know is about to tell her that she had a miscarriage. And I know it, but she doesn't know it. So now I feel like a real ass because I wanted to be the husband and be there for her instead of, and now I'm thinking, well, now I should have told her, because now I can't even be in there for her. So now I'm just fuming, and then I go back to, hold on, calm down. We're smarter than this. Let's figure this out. Well, if you go to the emergency department, they can't turn you away. So I walked back up and I said, all right, I think I found a solution here. I have a migraine. Can you check me in for a migraine, please? And then I'm going to AMA, so leave against medical advice. And I'm not going to sign anything. And you're not going to make any money. And you're going to do a bunch of paperwork. And I'm going to leave. Or you can let me in to be with my wife. And he goes back, talks to the supervisor, comes back, and they bring me into my wife's room that she hadn't been seen yet. And she, how'd you get in here? So we'll talk about that later. So I'm sitting in there. We got the news, and it, now that I'm saying it out loud, I think it was appropriate to be the husband at that point and be there for her for that. But I was this close to not being there, and that would have really driven me crazy. But you know, people say think out of the box all the time, and it's I think that term's overplayed, but sometimes that's the only way to do things is go around. Adapt and overcome is the better term, I guess. Adapt and overcome. There's a way. You figure it out.
That's a term I love, man. Adapt and overcome. I love think outside the box too, but I think people use it. They just don't know how to utilize it.
Correct. Yep.
They say it, they just don't know how to utilize it. But
so we went together. We went down a weird path. We never had any trouble with our marriage or anything. It was weird for me because it wasn't my body, right? I'm just the dude. I'm just the dad. I know how to care for people. I know how to empathize. I can tell when something's wrong and try to help you. And like most guys, we try to fix problems, right? And sometimes people just want to talk, and we want to take that and, well, here's what you do to fix it. And sometimes you just need to shut up. Can you edit that part out, please? So we had all this stuff going on. We got to the point where that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. We're like, let's get out of this house. So we sold it. We bought an RV because we didn't know where we wanted to move. We were just kind of flying by the seat of our pants at that point. We lived in an RV with both, so basically a almost newborn. So if we fast forward a little bit here, we're a newborn, 2-year-old German Shepherd, and we were trying to find a house. Our credit wasn't great at the time, so we were trying to pay stuff off. And then at the same time, so I'm working night shift. She got laid off. She ended up being a silver lining. She got a better job. And then we haven't even gone into the business side of things yet. We're still in the middle of COVID, and my business partner, Gary, and I decided to open a gun store. Why not? We got all this other crap going on. Let's just do some more stuff.
Oh, shit. I mean, it's not laughable that in the midst of everything you got going on, you're like, open a gun store. Your wife just had a miscarriage, and I think you did the right thing, man. I think you sat there and you were the husband, not the fixer, man, and not the deliverer of the news either, man. So I think you went, the right direction with that. You probably should ask her, because at times have passed, I think that's healed. So, but I think you definitely did the right thing, man. If you're listening, how would you deliver the news? How would you take it? Would you be the husband, Or would you be the delivery of the news? Comment in the comments, man. Cory, you're a badass, my friend.
Thanks.
You dealt with the opiate addiction. You went into the military. You got medically separated. And most of the time that defines people and that stops them in their tracks. But you didn't. You went into the healthcare field and you found something that you're passionate about. And it led you to other things in life that you're passionate about. Open up a gun shop. And now you might even do a political career. But it's that resiliency that you have built up throughout your life. You didn't grow up with it. You had to learn it. You are a badass, my friend. You're a badass, resilient dude. Thank you for coming on the show, dude. And I am pleasure to absolutely know you and call you a friend.
Thank you. And you as well. You've been very helpful. We love when you come in the store. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. People that are having a tough time or transitioning out of the military or whatever it may be there's always a silver lining. Just keep going. That's what the military taught you. Just do it.
Yep.
Keep going.
Keep going, man. I tell, you know what? When you get out, you're not losing your purpose. You're not losing your drive. You're not losing your mission. It just changes. Now you got to find a new purpose, a new mission, and now a vision.
The biggest term there is shift fire.
Shift fire. Yeah. Pivot. It's time to pivot. Yep. Pivot or die. So, my friend, thank you for coming on, dude. One last question. Gary said that you like to get pegged. Is that true?
I think you have to ask Gary on that one. Maybe you should have him.
Yeah, so there might be a possible pegging political career going on. Awesome, man. Thank you for going on, dude. That's it. We are done.
Thank you.
If you have a heroic story and you'd like to share it, get in contact with us. Our information's in the bio. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, and share. And then I'll see you on the next episode, badasses.